Good. Well, welcome guys to the stream. So this is a late night stream. It's 9 o'clock in Australia, and I wanted to do one that was late to make it for you guys because most of you are in like UK or places where you've been unable to see the streams normally. So that's why I wanted to do it for this one, this time slot. So it will alternate between the two. Hey Yosef, good to see you. I never see you in streams. That's fantastic. So I do have a minion today. Minion, would you like to say hello?
Hello!
So the plan is, because I couldn't get the secondary mic working, she's just going to shout into this mic, and then you'll be able to hear her. And she will interrupt me during questions. But you might notice I've got some printers set up. I've got the Cocoon Create and the Trinus. Some of you people who've been asking about, how's the Trinus going? I have replaced the motherboard in it, and it works good. So it's printing some test cubes. And the whole point of these machines today is just to print some filaments, because look, I've got this thing of filament. This is all from eSun, or mostly from eSun. And it's just... I've already done test cubes on some of them, but just heaps of different types. So the plan is to just print 20mm cubes in all the different filaments I can try. So if there's any audio issues with volume, let me know. I can change it pretty easily. Other things, I'm not sure. Awesome to see you, Richard. To catch a live stream, like, this is the point of doing it so late. Oh, I lost my other camera again. I keep catching the cord for it. I wanted to do a late one here in Australia so you could catch it there in UK. Cool. So, I've got the Trinus printing. It might get too loud with the Cocoon Create on, but we'll see. If it does get too loud, I'll have to print with just one. And yeah, my minion will just interrupt me with any questions you have.
I already have one.
Okay, go.
Ebos would like to know, what do you think about the DDD drop leader twin printer?
I will reread that question.
Oh god.
What do you think about the DD drop leader twin 3D printer? I have never ever heard of that printer. I'm sorry. There is many on the market I have never seen, and I've never heard of that printer. So I cannot comment. There's another question as well, just quickly. Mike is asking, Angus, do you use a 3D mouse when modeling? No, I use this, which is the Logitech G502, which has the highest optical DPI of any mouse. It's an amazing mouse for gaming, and it is an awesome mouse for 3D modeling as well. Although I have tried a 3D mouse, it takes a while to get used to. But I have seen people do good things with them. Alright, so I'm just going to preheat the Cocoon Create, which is the Wanhao i3 V2. This was a previous print on it, so clearly needed a little bit of issues, a little bit of TLC. If anyone's seen Richard's recent video, it's about how to solve this issue. It's a good video. Go watch Richard's Rich Rap, his YouTube channel. So, thinking what filament to print on the Cocoon. I'll probably go with one of the PLAs. Let's see. We could try Polyflex. That might work. It is the Flexi on extruder. I'm all open to failures on streams. Let's try that.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay, what do you think about the Wanhao Duplicator i3 version 2 versus the Yan M150 3D?
Okay, that's a good question. So the question was, what do I think about the Wanhao V2 versus the Malian 150? So the Malian 150 is a Hobby King clone of the Wanhao i3. they're both pretty similar, but the Hobby King one's slightly cheaper. It is a clone of a clone, essentially. Yeah, I would just get whichever's cheapest, to be honest. They're both going to be very similar. They're both going to have the same extruders. I was going to be getting one of the 150s. I'm not sure if I am still yet. But, yeah, whatever you can get, basically. They're going to be very similar printers. And no, I'm not drinking Red Bull. I am actually having a GT, because it is 9 o'clock at night. I don't drink Red Bulls that late. Only Joel does. Minion, can you grab me a pair of cutters, please?
This one?
Yes, thank you. Without pulling the entire tool thing down, thank you. So I am printing Polyflex. So this is Polyflex. Very flexible.
Question. How do you make a 3D printer less noisy?
You can't. Well, you can. So the question was, how do you make a 3D printer less noisy? It all comes down to the mechanical design. If you saw my recent video on the Flashforge Finder at National Manufacturing Week, that is a quiet 3D printer, and it's all done because the mechanics are designed really well. Whereas if you have, like, you know, this machine, open frames, you get vibrations, and you get issues. You can put them in boxes, cardboard boxes with insulation, but that's more effort. So, yeah. Oh, you can also increase your micro-stepping. So if your machine has the ability to go up to 1/16th micro-stepping, it can run quieter than running it at 1/8 micro-stepping. But it's not a huge improvement, and you might lose torque if you do that. So I'm just going to try to feed this in, if it works. Let's see. Right. You can ask me questions while I'm doing this as well. I can't see the screen.
Okay. Energy Strike would like to know, do you like the Hobby King filament?
Okay, so the question was, do I like the Hobby King filament? I haven't actually tried the Hobby King filament myself. I've heard that the colours are not fantastic. But apart from that, yeah, it's cheap. It is really cheap. Hobby King filament is ridiculously cheap. Whether it's good or not, I'm not sure. I haven't tried it yet. This is the only problem with filament samples. You end up with especially flexible materials. So this will be interesting. I'm going to have to hand feed this. Right. So let's load up a cube. So I'm going to go with Wanhao i3. Nope. And I'm going to change it to a 1 multiplier. 0.25. And print speed, I'm going to put that pretty low just conservatively, so maybe 2000. And no... yep, it's good.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead. You can interrupt me anytime.
Okay. What do you think about the Anvil 3D on Kickstarter? If you've heard of it.
The Anvil. To be honest, I haven't looked too much into it. I've been looking at some other Kickstarters, like that toy 3D printer for kids, and the really cheap 3D printer, but I haven't looked too much at the Anvil. Yeah. Just double check. Anvil. It's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't actually looked into this one at all. To be honest, it's sort of... There's been something like 5 3D printer projects over the last month on Kickstarter, and it's been really hard to catch up. But yeah, it's another low-cost printer. I'll definitely do a video on it before the campaign ends, though. Minion, could you please plug this into the back of the computer if you find a spare USB port?
Yes.
Maybe, if you find one. Also, some of you may notice it's going to be hard to hear above the sound of the printers, but my computer no longer makes any noises. That's because I replaced the computer fans with Noctuas, and they are super quiet, finally, so I don't have the horrible vibrating noises. And the 3D printer was asking about the Flexion extruder. I'm still testing it, so I'm taking my sweet time to test the Flexion to make sure it's worthwhile. I've heard that they're having trouble keeping up with demand as well, so that's not a bad thing. It means they're pretty popular. How'd you go?
I don't think there's a spare one.
You can probably unplug...
USB in here?
Is there a... Yeah, unplug the USB. Energy Strike... any way to get Superfly 3D legally if I don't have $150? You could ask them nicely. That's what I did. That's how I got it. But apart from that, not really. Ben's asking specs of my rig. I've got a older generation Core i7. I can't remember which. It's a micro mini ITX. It's mini ITX. Board, 8 gigs of RAM, GTX 760. Most of it's secondhand, and I only recently pieced it together out of bits and pieces. But it's quite good. It does what I need. Okay, so I'm going to send this to the SD card.
Inkdroid would like to know if you could print with any 3D printer, which one would it be? If you could print with
Any 3D printer. If I could print with any 3D printer, it would be one of the humongous Projet systems that 3D systems sell. Like the humongous resin systems. Because they just are awesome. I mean, but they cost $500,000. But, you know, you didn't put a price tag on it. And Evan's asking about the BPS. No, I haven't had any time, Evan, at all to do anything with the BPS extruder yet. I will as soon as I can, but at the moment I need to finish testing the Flexion. And Minion, could you please unplug that USB you just plugged in and give it back to me? It's so no, not this one, the other one. Oh, these minions.
Helpful.
They're not the brightest. Okay. So let's mount this SD card. You can just interrupt me.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on the proto-cycler filament recycle?
So I get asked in every stream, what do I think about filament recycling machines? I think personally they are a waste of time because filament diameter is so critical when it comes to 3D printing that if you have filament that you extruded, even if it's from virgin pellets and it changes in diameter to be too small or too big, your filament will jam and your print will fail. Even commercial filament can have that problem, and they control it with lasers to keep track of the dimensions. If you film, it's a noble idea. I completely get behind the idea that you want to recycle plastic into filament. I love that idea, but it hasn't been proven in practice to work properly. People can't get enough length in a roll that's consistent to get good prints. It's, plastic degrades. 3D printers saying, plastic does degrade over time. It gets worse. You get contaminations, you get problems, you get dust, ingress, and you can recycle them into stuff like garden stakes. I've seen that done really well with plastics, but in terms of making filament, it's just too precise. It doesn't work very well. Right, let's see if we can get this thing to... Again, apologies for the really, really bad old webcam looking at the printers. I actually got donated a webcam from Spike, and I want to say thank you so much to Spike for sending it to me. But dude, I have not been able to get it to work, and I think it might be dead from the box, and that sucks.
Question from Carl.
Yes.
What is the best valued filament in Australia?
Make sure this is actually extruding. Doesn't really look like it's extruding. There it is now. Sorry to interrupt. Carl's asking about the best filament, best value filament in Australia. That would be the Hobby King stuff. I like eSun personally. I think eSun is very, very good. But yeah, the Hobby King stuff is also very, very cheap. And I apologize for the contrast. I'm trying to... maybe if I view it from this angle. I'm trying to get it so you can see it. With this really... This webcam is something like 8 years old. You know, only the best on Maker's Muse. Jason is asking about Hatchbox filament. Have I tried Hatchbox? No, because it does not exist in Australia at all. You cannot buy it in Australia. It exists in the States and possibly the UK, but it's a renamed Chinese brand that's been distributed, and I've never seen it here. Yeah, and Evan's saying about the new PLA Plus, which is a higher temperature PLA, so I might have some of that in my box of tricks. Let's have a look. This place is a complete tip at the moment. I keep tripping over wires and all sorts of horribleness. That's the carbon fiber, which we won't be printing today because I don't have a hardened nozzle. What's this? Yes.
Question. Michael would like to know, any word from TiVo about the tarantula?
Oh, hey Michael. Good to see you in here. Yeah, I had a really nice chat with them on Skype. So, in terms of me getting a TiVo to test, they are sending me one to test out. And, yeah, that's really cool because it'll be the first low-cost kit I've covered on Maker's Muse, and they seem really comfortable and confident with their products. So, and also, totally going to do a plug for Chuck over at his Filament Friday videos. Go check him out because he actually did a review on the TiVo and he was really happy with it. Oh, it's a red one. How do you know that and I don't, Evan? I'm so chaotically disorganized. I'm not sure where the red one's gone. I legitimately lost it. Oh dear.
Your wheel is on.
Oh. No, that's Polymaker. That's Poly Plus.
Question while you're looking.
Yes.
From Snickerbars 2. Thoughts on the All-Forge 3D modeling machine?
The All-Forge, yes. So I covered the All-Forge a little while ago in a stream I did with CJ Printing, and essentially it's a small injection molding machine. It looks pretty cool. I was kind of tempted, but you have to keep in mind it is just an injection molding machine. You need to have a mold made, and if it's going to be something to injection mold plastics, you need a mold that can withstand the temperature of molten plastics, which tend to be not plastics or better ones. And then they're advertising ones that can do metal. It's useful if you want to make something like 50 of the same thing. So I could see it being great for Warhammer enthusiasts looking to use 3D printing to augment their Warhammer army they're printing at home on their own, or model makers like that. But I can't see it being useful for hobbyists who just print stuff. You may as well just print stuff 10 times rather than having a machine that costs $5,000 to injection mold that after putting the effort into a mold. So it's sort of a niche of a niche. And it's a cool idea. I think it's a bit weird that they didn't do it through Kickstarter. I think it's a bit weird they did it on their own. They said people associated Kickstarter with being dodgy, but I think doing it on their own makes it feel more dodgy for me, personally. But I'm pretty keen to see how they go. And apparently they were at Maker Faire. I don't know if... None of you guys will be in the States because it's like 4 a.m. there. But apparently they were going to be at Maker Faire, which is on right now.
Peak filament? P-E-E-K?
Okay, that's a good question. Before I answer that question, I have to say hi to Spike. Dude, I don't know if you just come in. Thank you so much for joining me in one of the streams, and thank you so much for your support for forever. I got your webcam, I plugged it in, and I couldn't get a signal out of it, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So I've got a really old low-cost webcam looking at the printer now, and I'm going to investigate it later. I hope it's not broken. But yeah, the question was about PEEK filament, which has an extremely high melting temperature. No, I have not printed with it. You would need a complete all-metal hot end capable of very, very high melting point resistance. And yes, Bryce, I have to say hi to you, sorry. Definitely, Bryce is from Perth, so WA respect. And the Trinus is finished. How about that? So, get that off the bed. So I don't know if you can see that in the cam. This is the print off the Trinus. It did have a bit of filament at the bottom, so it's a bit crap at the bottom, but this is a pearlescent filament I'm testing at the moment. So if you look at the roll, I can grab the roll and just drop everything constantly. It's sort of a pearlescent effect. It's really nice PLA filament I'm testing for a friend in China. Sweet.
Thoughts on the Carbon 3D?
Carbon 3D. There, yeah. So, questions about the Carbon 3D. Let me just grab another roll of filament. So the Carbon 3D has come to market now, but there's still a few doubts in my mind about it. They always show it printing lattice structures with thin cross-sectional area in terms of where the print bed is as it grows. I would love to see them print like a brick. So I know it's stupid, but I'd love to see them print a brick of filament, a brick of resin out of that technology to prove to me that it can print something that large without it warping. Personally, I think it can't. I think that you're going to get dimensional inaccuracies if you print something so large, which is why they print lattice structures to prove their technology. I'm just going to dump these all out. I'll clean them up later. I'll tidy it up later. So we've got some more Polyflex. This is PVA, which I'm not going to print with because that's just useless. Yes?
What are your thoughts on 3D printing drones?
Okay, the question's about 3D printing drones. So, yeah, I mean, why not? People have been 3D printing quadcopter parts for ages, and there's no reason you can't do it. So, I definitely think that, yeah, go ahead. It's a great way to do it. You can prototype on the fly, and then you can just test it, and if it breaks, print another one. Nothing wrong with that. They're all the fancy ones. Some more.
Michael would like to know, do you have any tips for smoothing out PLA prints and making it glossy?
Okay, the question's about smoothing PLA prints. It's possible, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. And the reason I'm not is because the chemicals used are extremely dangerous. And if you think acetone was dangerous for smoothing ABS prints, the chemicals used to smooth PLA prints are like a step above. They form their own explosive peroxides if they're left in sunlight. The chemicals are just too dangerous. It's like trying to smooth PET. You know, you can do it with some industrial solvents, but they're also so dangerous that you shouldn't touch them. So, if you want to smooth PLA, coat it with something like XTC, which is a 2-part epoxy and works pretty well. 3D printer's saying, isn't it ethanol? No, that you smooth the new Polymaker Polisher kit uses PVB, which is polyvinyl butadiene or something like that. That smooths with ethanol. PLA smooths with, I'll say it, but you're not allowed to use it. It's tetrahydrofluorine, which is what you can use to smooth PLA or glue PLA. But don't ever put it in a rice cooker, it will blow up. Just don't, please. You cannot hold me responsible. And I found the red. It was hidden. There we go. Evan, you're so clued on. Okay, so this is the PLA Plus from eSun, which is a higher strength PLA. Let's try printing that.
A question. Should I buy a Wanhao i3 from Amazon for my first 3D printer?
Yeah, okay, so the question is, should you buy a Wanhao i3 from Amazon for your first 3D printer? I think the Wanhao i3 is a respectable first 3D printer that you could buy. It's not the best machine on the market, but it's definitely fairly easy to get up and running, keep running, maintain, calibrate. Just gotta keep this feeding. And it's cheap. It's really cheap for the bed volume you get. I've done a review on the original Wanhao, which was okay. I had a few issues. The Cocoon Create's the same as the Wanhao V2, and the version 2.1 fixes the issues I had with the V2. So yeah, it's a machine I would highly recommend for newcomers with a budget for 3D printing. Definitely. Right, let's see if I can heat up. I'm using Pango software to run the Trinus. It's not very good, but it works. But it's a Kickstarter project, so it's got a long way to go.
How's your anime print going?
Oh, okay. While this is warming up, the question was, how's the anime print going? So, because you guys are in the stream, I will give you a sneak peek. Okay, ready for this? This is how it is so far. There you go. So, what I've got the head that's separated off into one piece with the hair. I've got the arms which clip into the skirt, I don't know, top. It's too thin, so I need to go back into Mesh Mixer and thicken it up there because it broke through. That's the bottom of the skirt. And that's the the top of the legs. And this is the classic Miku little arm. I call them arm stockings in my file. I don't know if that's the right word for them. But look at that hand. That hand detail is phenomenal. If I can... There you go. That hand looks so good. And the legs as well. The feet. So I've been printing this in just white and grey PLA. The grey PLA is actually something special. It's a formulation I got done for myself to test out. And it's actually working really well. So a little bit more on that later. But yeah, it's coming along. And then once I'm happy with it, I will use my Miku Blue PLA to create an assembly. And I'm probably going to do it twice the size of that. So big. It's going to be cool, but it's so hard to do. I was like going to make a tutorial out of it, but it's so difficult. In terms of what printer I used the Upbox at 100 micron layer heights in PLA. And the Upbox is a fantastic printer to do that sort of detail. Alright, I'm going to change the filament over on the Trinus. So again, that's that pearlescent filament I'm testing out for a buddy. Put that aside. And see if I can find the end of this sample.
Question? What are your thoughts on the Robo 3D R1?
That's a good question. So the question is, what are my thoughts on the Robo R1? I have never used one. I have heard that out of the box they're not very good. And I was going to have one on the way, but it never materialized. So I might follow that up, but to be honest, I've got enough things on my plate that I don't have time to review machines like that at the moment. But yeah, I know some people with them that really like them, but I definitely know a lot of other people that have issues with them. Out of the box, they're not very good from what I understand. Go with a Wanhao. Just get a Wanhao. Everyone has Wanhao. There's got to be thousands of them around the world now. There's such a popular printer now. Right. So this is the PLA Plus from eSun. So let's do another print. There's just crap everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. Oh dear. So Boomerang Freak, in terms of that pearlescent filament, basically it's a filament, it's a PLA that I'm testing for someone in China. I can't go into any more detail about it yet, but he's going to be releasing it soon, and I'm just sort of helping him quality control test it. I am super impressed with it so far. Where is it? This is a print I did with the orange variant of it. Actually, this is a really... I'm going to talk about this in a video soon. This is a really cool print. But, yeah, the orange is just nuts. And this is the grey I've been testing. And just it's phenomenal PLA. Really, really... It's strong as well. It's a modified PLA. It's not just pure.
I've got a thing from Mike.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I bought some nylon. It's great material, but I cannot get it to laminate. Have you printed with nylon before?
Yeah, okay. So the question is printing with nylon. Nylon is super difficult to print. If you've thought ABS was hard to print with, nylon is something else. So, to print successfully with nylon, you need a really hot bed. You need a nozzle temperature of about 260 degrees, I'd say, depending on the brand. And you need to make sure the nylon is completely dry, because if it absorbs water, it will start bubbling and it'll ruin your print. And in terms of a build surface for sticking nylon down, I have found, for me, if you get build tack and sand it. So nylon wants a rough surface to stick into because it's really slippery. It doesn't stick well to smooth surfaces unless you get, like, if you're lucky and you get a lot of suction. It wants to dig into little grooves. So I've actually sanded build tack before and stuck it down to that. People have sanded Garolite, which is like a fiberglass plate. That works as well. But in terms of support material and rafts, you can't get any support material off. It just welds, which is why it's so strong. But yeah, try sanded build tack. I know it sounds silly, but it's worked for me in the past. But it is hard to print. Definitely difficult. I can't believe this is working. It's just running on the ground. Yes.
One from Ben. He tried craftware during the week, but it keeps slicing with gaps in layers. Do you know what the fix or issues might be?
Craftware.
Craftware.
So the question was about craftware, and it's having gaps in layers?
Yep.
Gaps in layers.
Keeps slicing with gaps in the layers.
Weird. I had that issue recently with another file, and I thought the file was corrupt, but maybe it's an issue with the latest craftware. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Try sticking into Cura and see if it does the same in Cura. If the same file does not have issues in Cura, then it's craftware that's causing the problems. I haven't really used the newest craftware, so I can't help you, unfortunately, for that. And Mike's saying, done all that, what about speed? So about the nylon, you can print slower, but again, as long as your nozzle is capable of keeping a high temperature of 260 degrees, then it's fine. You will get stringing though. Nylon will very much string between things. You just cut them off with a knife. Yeah, so Ben's saying there's layers missing. Try Cura to see if your file still has problems, but I did have something, funnily enough, similar yesterday in Craftware with one type of file, and I'm not sure what was causing it. So I'll need to look into that a little bit more. Yeah, and yeah, the 3D printer is suggesting to fix your model, make sure it is not damaged, because that will definitely cause problems. So remove one of the issues if you can.
Tips for cable management with 3D printers.
Cable management. Have you seen my room? I am not the person to ask for that. But if you look at the Cocoon Create, if I point the camera at it, look at the Cocoon Create. It has a cable guide. That's a fantastic way to manage your cables without fatigue. Or this is a cheaper way to do it on the Trinus, where it's got one of those wire cable organizers you buy from like a stationery store. That works pretty well as well. You don't want anything where the wire will bend 90 degrees because that will cause fatigue and breaking over time. But yeah, I definitely am not the person to ask about it. I just zip tie stuff randomly and hope for the best half the time. Daniel would like to know, where did you study industrial design? So Daniel asked where I studied industrial design. I studied that at UTS, which is University of Technology in Sydney. So out of high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was building combat robots at the time and not paying attention to my studies. So out of high school, my parents tried to make me enroll into engineering because they thought that would be great. And I thought, robots equals engineering. I did get in, but I decided to do a gap year working as an apprentice in electronics. I don't know why. Learned a lot. But afterwards, I decided that engineering was not for me because I hated maths. And I got into my industrial design degree because I could tell them what type of steels I was using in my combat robot. And I could tell them I could use Rhino for 3D modeling. That was a 4-year degree, so very, very intensive, 4 years full-time. And the final year was all about major projects and presentation, which is why I know a fair bit about machine design because I designed my own 3D printer at the end of my university degree. That's what I did. Excuse me for a moment because the Polyflex is tangled around my chair. Oh dear. Run over it.
While you're untangling,
Yes.
what's your favourite wood filament? Or the best one?
The best one. They're all pretty horrible. So the question is, what's your favourite wood filament? I don't want to run over it again. The issue with wood filaments is it has wood particles in it, therefore you risk blocking your nozzle. It doesn't matter what brand it is, but it just takes one or two particles at the same time that are just a little bit larger than the rest to block your nozzle. And also they're very soft. I've had great success with the filamentive wood PLA by printing very fast, and I like it that it's a darker colour. I'll just show you quickly. I have reviewed it. Gotta keep my monitors on. This is the filamentive wood PLA, so it's a nice dark wood colour, and it's my favourite at the moment. Prints pretty well as well. You have to print quite fast. But I tried the original ColorFab wood fill ages ago, and it just clogged every printer I used. I think it's changed now, but it just put me off. Yeah. It's just
Mike would like to know when you're going to start printing, when you're going to print with concrete and ceramics.
So the question was about concrete and ceramic 3D printing. There is a whole class of paste 3D printers, like ice cream, cake icing. That was my design. I designed a cake icing 3D printer back in university. And then concrete and ceramics. They're cool, but they're not really something I'd do. I don't see them being fully practical as yet. They're more of an art project. There is ceramic printers that use a powder and then print binder into the powder and then you put that into a kiln. They're pretty cool. You can do some really accurate things. And I think that's how Shapeways does it. But in terms of me doing it, I think I've got my hands full at the moment with, just all this other type of 3D printing, let alone other technologies. I am looking to get a resin printer very soon, though. I may make one first, as some of you will know, about the YOLO project.
You want to know how that's going?
Oh, you want to know how the YOLO project's going? Can you grab the projector?
Yeah.
If you can find it. There. So I've been gathering parts. I've been hoarding them. So what I have is with the Trinus, it's got the linear axes. I've got a spare. That's going to be my Z. And I have this, which is a Blitzwolf projector. So I'm reviewing this because Blitzwolf got in touch with me and wanted my opinion. They actually contacted me and said, we've got products really cool. Can you review them? I'm like, well, guys, I do a 3D printing channel. What do you have that's useful? And I went through and I looked at things that I could adapt and kind of subvert into 3D printing processes. So this is going to be my projector for my resin system. It's actually pretty good. It's a decent projector. It's about $100. And I've got the Z axis from the Trinus, and I've got some resin. And that's pretty much all you need, and a bed somewhere as well. So that's going to be the YOLO soon.
Boomerang Freak said, have you heard of the beer filament?
The buzzed filament, yes, I have. So the beer filament, I got in touch with them a while ago, but I think it's just I'm in Australia, so it's a bit too far away for them to send it. It's pretty neat. I don't know if it's just a gimmick, though. I think they're putting waste products from beer into it. I don't know if that means it's actually helping the plastic, or they're just putting crap in it, like, you know, like a wood-filled plastic, if it's like a beer-filled plastic. I don't know, but it's a neat idea. Okay, so I've got a... Oh, I delaminated it. No, that's totally my fault. Oh, well. Oh, the first layer wasn't completely flowing right. Okay, so I need to improve my settings on the Polyflex, but it did print. My I think with flexible materials, you need to increase your flow rating. I increased it to 1. I probably need to increase it to about 1.3 looking at this. But it is squishy. Trial and error. That's 3D printing, right?
Alright, what are your thoughts on the 101 Hero 3D printer on Kickstarter?
I will answer that question. Can you just plug that back in?
Yes.
Thank you. Just leave it plugged in. Yeah. Okay, so the question is about the 101 Hero, which is a $49 3D printer on Kickstarter. Is that? Yep. Okay. And yeah, I actually backed it. So I don't think it's ever going to deliver, to be honest. I mean, $49 for a 3D printer. You have to keep in mind that they're going to be losing about 20% of that, because they'll be losing the money to Kickstarter and then to various, various fees. I'll just interrupt. Shotgun, I will not be streaming at this time next week, so I'm going to alternate between 12 o'clock and 9 o'clock for the different demographics, unfortunately. But you can always catch it when it's recorded. But yeah, so $49. Then the shipping will... I think it became $79 with the shipping. That's still ridiculous for a 3D printer. It's just so cheap. So I don't know if they're actually going to ever deliver. I think it's a scam, personally. But we'll see. I cannot get this SD card in. There we go.
Will you ever get a TAZ6? TAZ6?
Yeah, okay, so the question is, will I be getting a TAZ6? So, I don't know if any of you have seen Joel's channel, but he got a TAZ6, and he was not impressed with it. He had issues with the extruder wobbling, and he had issues with various other problems with the nozzle wipe not being effective. He had a pre-production unit, fair enough. Pre-productions can have issues, but considering his experiences with the TAZ Mini, it did not line up very nicely. So, yeah, I'm not getting one. They haven't gotten in touch with me. I'm just too far away, I think. But I think that, it's a very expensive printer for the money. I would go with the G-Max any day of the week. Oh yeah, Carl saying that Chuck's TAZ 6 video was a good laugh. I loved that. I laughed so much when... If you haven't seen Chuck, go to Chuck's channel for the Filament Friday. He just has this box TAZ 6 and then he takes it off and it's something else. It's great. It's really funny. Okay, so my settings were not correct for this, so I'm going to go back into processes. And I'm going to change my extrusion multiplier to 1.3... 13, 1.3, and increase my fill to 40. That's fine.
A question from Mr. 89 Netron.
Yeah.
He said, I'm probably going to butcher this. What do you think about the Aurorum Alexis Extra Large for a first 3D printer?
The Aurorum Alexis.
He also says, get your minion something nice.
My minion is pretty handy. So the question's about the Aurorum Alexis. I've seen a few people around with them and getting good prints off them, but I did see something really worrying recently where someone opened up the power supply within the Aurorum, the Aurorum print. I don't know if it was the Wombot or the Alexis, one of them, and there was these spade connectors everywhere, like really, really dodgy, and that threw me off a bit. And my recent experience with the filament makes me worry a bit about the whole quality control there, but I have seen good prints off it, and it's a big printer. Yeah, so yeah, that's all my comments about the Alexis. Depends where you are. I mean, I really like the G-Max as an alternative. Alright, just gonna save this new cube. Yes. Oh, Chuck, it's great to see you in here. Yeah, I love that video, dude. It was so funny. I've got a TiVo tarantula on the way as well, and I hope my experience with it reflects yours. Okay. Let's see if I can't get this cube to print properly. I think someone asked, how do I get my minion to answer questions? She's just choosing one she likes. I can't control these minions. Okay. Cool. That's a tangle. Oh, Fran's saying you ordered your Wanhao i3. Good choice. I mean, I wish Wanhao paid me to recommend them. But I've never actually talked to Wanhao personally. It's funny. This is never going to untangle. At all. Let's hope it's enough for one cube.
Is the Replico Prusa i3 any good?
The Replico Prusa?
Yep.
Is it like the genuine Prusa? Like the new Prusa? Because that looked really, really good. I haven't looked into it too much, to be completely honest. If it's a different brand, I don't know about it. But yeah, if it's the genuine Prusa, you know it's going to be good. I mean, enough said, it's a genuine Prusa. I haven't ever used one just because, you know, once you get them to Australia, the price to performance doesn't quite line up. But you know, he's the guy that invented the whole i3 design, so yeah, it's pretty good. Right. Good. Okay, that's freed up enough. Oh, Sims, about asking about the Patreon stuff. It withdraws it once every month at a certain time, which I can't control. So just don't worry about it. The fact that people are supporting me on Patreon means so much to me because I can afford this faster internet to run the stream. Just don't worry about it. It's all good. And I really appreciate the support nonetheless. Just, yeah. Really do appreciate it. This is a futile effort.
Question, how many failed prints do you have per good ones?
It depends on the machine. So, because I have the luxury of having multiple printers, it varies. Okay, so if I want to print something really good, you might not have seen this. I was showing everyone before. I'm working on that Miku figurine. This is the head of it. I printed this like that, at 100 microns on the up box in PLA plastic. There was support material under the hair, under here. It worked first time. Now, I do some work with the up guys, but you know, I am unbiased and I have lots of other machines, but I still go to that machine if I want something that's perfect almost every time. But if I want something experimental, because you can't change temperatures on the up box, then I go with something like the Cocoon Create. And that's going to be a little bit more hit and miss. Depending on the filament, like I tried a PET recently, and I needed 3 goes to get it right, to tune the temperatures, feed rates, and that kind of thing. But if it's just a regular PLA, I just go to my PLA settings in Simplify 3D, and I go through that, and then it works, which is pretty cool. But if it's something experimental, like you just saw, with this Polyflex, where'd the cube go? It's gone. It's fallen on the floor somewhere. The first one didn't work, it delaminated. So I'm trying it again. And that's just how it works. You know, I'm running Simplify 3D here to change settings. And yeah, 3D printing's all about trial and error, especially on these machines.
Michael asked, have you tried the O-filler filament?
O-filler, no. So this will be an interesting thing to mention, but the filament market at the moment is exploding, like exponentially exploding. I get contacted by filament companies almost every day now, asking if I want to review their filaments. And to be honest, there is too many filament suppliers now compared to the printing enthusiasts on the market. So I've never heard of that brand. It's probably good. Like, in terms of filament that sucks, I haven't really come across much recently that is just flat out rubbish out of the box. But in terms of these new companies coming on the market thinking filament's going to be making them lots of money, best of luck to them, but I don't think so. I think companies like eSun, Colorfab, Protopasta, they're all the ones that are going to be doing really well and outlasting the rest of them. But that's just how business is. Same with 3D printers. You know, there was a big boom with 3D printer companies, and now they kind of died off. Now we've got a few less, but better, more reliable printing companies. Oh, I found it. There it is. there's the cube. So see the bottom delaminated? That's because the layer adhesion was too low. So it's definitely feeding. Oh no, it's not. Is it? It's kind of skipping now and then. Not sure why.
What are your thoughts on the new extruder head for the Trinus from Andrew?
I haven't seen it actually. So the question's about the new extruder head for the Trinus. I honestly haven't seen it. Since the campaign finished, I've been very busy, and this machine works great as it is, but I haven't seen any updates. Also, if the update's for backers, I'm not a backer, so I can't see them. But yeah, that's actually interesting. I will check it out afterwards. I did know they were going to change them, but I don't know. It's not bad. I don't mind it.
Have you got any recommendations for 3D printers for universities?
So 3D printers for universities. It depends. That's a very vague question. If you're a student, then get something you can afford. If you're a university, get something that's reliable. I can't answer that anymore. It's too vague, sorry. Oh, they're both tangled within each other now. Right. We'll have to finish up fairly shortly because it's edging up to 10 o'clock. So, question about planning to slice a model and have the projector display each layer. So that's a good question. You're referencing the YOLO I'm going to make. The technology is called DLP, Direct Light Processing. So you have the projector and the layer, and it projects up into the resin, and then each layer builds up your part through the UV cured resin. And you do this through essentially a slicer. So there's various open source ones I've looked into. I haven't chosen one I'm happy with. There's a lot of paid ones. But it's like Simplify 3D, it's like Cura. But instead of outputting G-code, it outputs bitmaps. So black and white. And you just run those through like a time lapse through the projector, and it's computer controlled, and it controls the Z-axis, and it just shows each layer as a picture, slice by slice. Pretty simple, actually. Actually, possibly more simple than G-code slices. That's how it works. So it's pretty... it's just getting it fine-tuned is the hard part.
Someone asked where to go after the fabricated mini.
I would go with... So, okay, just to reiterate the question, where to go after the fabricated mini, I would go with the Wanhao i3 or the Malin 150, which is the Hobby King clone of them. Yeah, I think that's probably the best bet. You get a bigger volume, it's heated, and you get a bigger range of materials. I think someone asked about dual extruders before. I never print with dual extruders at all, ever. I have in the past. I find them to be a huge time sink in terms of getting them fine-tuned and calibrated. I mean, one extruder is hard enough. Imagine two. And in terms of utility for me, if I want something in different colors, I'll just do something like this, where I'll have the arm and push it into a print, so I get dual colors, or I'll paint it, because getting dual color prints without bleed between materials is very difficult.
Have you tested any dissolvable filaments?
Again, that goes back to the dual material question. So I do have a PVC from eSun. That's wood. Oh, I can print this one after. No, I have a PVC somewhere. That dissolves in water, but it's, again, because it dissolves in water, it is susceptible to absorbing moisture, difficult to print with, and I've never really seen it work very well. It's, it's one of those things where it's so hard to fine tune, and then you can only use it with PVA. Sorry, PLA. Difficult. And it's good to see Sparky in the house. How's that WA storm going for you? Apparently it knocked out my girlfriend's internet.
What's your favourite printer and filament? Big question.
What's my favourite?
Printer.
Yeah.
Printer and filament.
Okay. What's my favourite printer and filament?
Yeah.
Again, I'm loving the prints off the Outbox for reliability. At the moment, it's the machine I go to the most for detailed prints because it just does its thing. And favorite filaments? I think it's no lie that the pink eSun's pretty much my favorite. I mean, if you've been watching my videos, I do anything I can to sneak it into prints. I need to get more. I don't know where to get it because Hobby King doesn't have it anymore. So I'm probably going to end up ordering a ton of it in because that's just something I do. Yeah, eSun's pretty good. I like eSun.
Can you do some guess the print videos?
Okay, the question is, guess the print videos? Is that like, what's that Pokemon? What's that Pokemon?
You're like, what filament did I use? Guess.
Yeah, I guess that'd be interesting. I have been thinking of doing some more competitions because I did that contest with the Modify 3D tool. It's not really my thing. I know a lot of other channels do giveaways and that kind of thing. I'm not in it to just get subscribers because I want to win something. I know you guys watch it because of the content I bring you, and I want to keep bringing you quality content. You don't want to just have... I mean, everyone wants to win something, but I think it's more cool to actually have a competition where you actually enter something, where you do something like a design competition or a print competition. So yeah, I am thinking of some ideas to do that, and I've got some connections with various suppliers to line up some really cool prizes. So I think that would be pretty cool. Seems to be working alright.
Nathan asked, what glue would you recommend for gluing together PLA?
Okay, so I have a video coming out later on this week about gluing different filaments, but to tide you over, you can glue PLA together with a gel like super glue, but it will leave a white residue usually. I don't like using super glue on prints. I think it's not the best way to do it. You can use 5-minute epoxy. That's what I would recommend. 5-minute epoxy is very strong and fills up the gaps between the prints, so you get a nice strong interface. And you can chemically weld it with tetrahydrofluorine, which I mentioned to someone before. It will dissolve PLA and melt it. I will mention it in the video, and I'll show you how it works. It works similar to acetone and ABS. But it can be a bit dangerous. I'm getting clicks now and then from the Flexion. I don't know why. Maybe I made the flow rate a little bit too high. And the Trinus is done. Again. So you might be wondering why I'm printing all of these cubes. Well, quite simply, I have tons of filaments. Like, so many different types. The Raft does pull away from the Pango software pretty well. But I have tons of different types of filaments. So the idea is I'm making a filament vault, where I'm going to have a big box with all these different filament samples, and I'm going to record the print settings I used, and what they were, and where I got them from, and when I bought them. Because filament companies are evolving. They go out of business. They come into business. They change formulas. And I want to document that. I'm a bit of a stickler for documenting this sort of stuff because no one else is. And it'd be really interesting to come back to it and sort of say, oh yeah, I want that certain color I tried once, and going into the box and finding the cube that you want to see and say, okay, that's that brand, and I'll go buy it. So that's what I'm working on, and I'm going to make it accessible to you somehow. I'm still thinking of how to do it, but that's the plan. Yeah.
Lots of questions on thoughts on different printers.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Hit me with all of them.
CTC 3D printers.
You get what you pay for. So the question is CTC printers, they are clones of clones. They do work, but you have to do a lot of finicky work with them, and I think there's like no support on them. But that's just what I've heard. I haven't used them.
Okay. The Big Box?
Big Box is a cool printer from E3D. I haven't used one myself, but I mean, E3D make awesome machines, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's, a really good machine. So, yeah.
And finally, Delta printers.
I can't speak for Delta printers at all. I've never owned one, and I have worked on one before. It was an Australian-made one called the Redback that's no longer sold. It wasn't very good, but the company has improved them since, so who knows? Soon I might be testing one, but I can only really speak for Cartesian machines because that's all I've used.
Okay. Thoughts on build tack versus Turingy blue tape?
Painter's tape? Turnigy.
Fantastic.
I like how I could guess that one. Okay, question is build tack versus blue tape. Look, there's no contest. Build tack is better than all of those tape solutions in my opinion. It's a more durable surface. It handles higher temperatures and stuff just seems to stick to it better. That's not saying that blue tape doesn't work, but I find with blue tape, stuff sticks to it too well and you damage it when you take the print off. So, build tack. Spend the extra money, get build tack. Or if you're cheap, get the Wanhao build tack, which is cheaper, but not as good. Well, it is as good, but the adhesive isn't as good. Alright. Just gonna go down there. And we'll go with one more Polymax. Let's go with a blue Polymax.
Okay, question from Daniel. Have you tested an all-in-one 3D printer, CNC, and laser engraver?
No, I haven't. So, have I tested an all-in-one 3D printer, CNC laser engraver? The Trinus has a laser engraving head, which I didn't get because it wasn't. It's a pre-production model, didn't exist yet. And in terms of a CNC, 3D printers are fundamentally designed different to CNC. When you cut things with a CNC, you have forces on the actual cutting head that force against the machine. You can't use belts very effectively on a 3D printer. The Trinus could be a CNC because it has lead screws around it. You need lead screws to drive a very powerful CNC. Now, that's not completely true. There is belt-driven CNCs, but in my personal opinion, they have to do very light cuts, and they're a bit of a toy. So, I wouldn't combine the two. Personally, I would have a 3D printer and a CNC, and maybe a laser cutter. But all-in-ones never really did it for me. And, yeah, I think they're a poor solution. Because you have to spend the time changing heads every time you want to do something different.
Jack asks, will you be doing a review on the new Cura?
The new Cura. So, Anthony over at the Hot End has already done a few videos on the new Cura. He didn't seem very impressed with it. So, I will look into it. I might do a video on it. But I personally think craftware is the way to go. Although some people have been having issues with craftware, which I need to investigate. But I think the new Cura, their attitude towards adding new machine definitions seems to be a little bit... I don't know, a little bit... What's the word to say it nicely? Closed, I guess. So it's a little bit difficult to do. Possibly just because how they wrote the code. I need to look into it more. But I think for the machines I run, the old Cura would work, or I'd just spend the cash for Simplify 3D. Or run Craftware. Again, I think Craftware is really quite decent for being free.
Here's one from Bryce. He says he's building a 3D printer and he wants it to be quiet but fast. Should he use belts, lead screws, or ball screws?
Oh. So the question is from Bryce, asking what he should use to build his 3D printer. Belts, lead screws, or ball screws? I guess it depends how deep your pockets are. The best solution, no brainer, would be ball screws. I mean, you get speed. Use the 10mm per turn ones, so they move 10 millimeters per turn, per revolution. You get speed, accuracy, and they're pretty quiet. They're also really expensive. compared to belts. Like, a league of their own more expensive. So if you want to make something that's amazing, then use those. But if you just want to make something that's okay and pretty good, use belts because they're so much cheaper. But definitely check out linear rails instead of using smooth rods. Linear rails seem to be like the high wind ones I checked out. The high wind rails are pretty cheap and they are so much better than linear rods. They're just easier to use, easier to mount, easier to get lined up, and that kind of thing. Did you delete some spam?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, someone's saying the new FlashForge Finder is really quiet. It is very, very quiet. I was surprised. And I'm not sure how they've done that. They've isolated the motors somehow to isolate that sound. Banned. Evan's asking about the all lead screw setup on the Trinus. Does it offer any advantages? I would say the Trinus is probably more accurate in terms of the extruder head movement. You're going to get less overshoot when it moves around because belts seem to have a little bit of flex in them. But the Trinus is slower. I mean, you can see the speed it's moving now that's pretty slow. I don't know if you can actually see that. This camera is shocking. It's pretty slow, but it is smaller and more accurate. This design would not scale up to a machine 4 times the size. It would just be too slow. Just way too slow. So yeah, each has their advantages. I think they did that because they could use 4 identical pieces to cut down on machining and manufacturing costs. But yeah, I don't see any other machines adopting it anytime soon. Belts they're just so much cheaper. Belts and rods, LM8 UUs and 8mm smooth rods. It's just the cheapest way to make a 3D printer.
Thoughts on the J-Car 3D printers?
Okay, so the question is about J-Car 3D printers. A little bit of history about J-Car. I used to go there all the time to buy electronic parts, this and that. They knew me really well. They gave me an employee card to get discounts when I was still in high school. That was then. Now I go to J-Car if I have to. And there's a few reasons. I know a lot of people might get offended by this, but in my experience, J-Car employees seem to not know what they're talking about, especially if I'm knowledgeable about 3D printing. I seem to be offended when I ask about filaments and they have to go through their catalog to tell me what colors they have, or go through their catalog to tell me, what it is or show me where it is, when I seem to know more about their own stock than they do. And it's overpriced. I went in there and I was going to buy a roll of filament. Okay, a kilo of filament, fine, I'll support them. $60. $60 can buy me 3 kilos of Hobby King filament. And I don't want to be a cheapskate, but that markup is ludicrous. So in terms of their printers, the Arduino Delta they had was just very overpriced and very poor quality. And the dual head extruded machine they have, you can buy on Hobby King for half the price. Sorry. So I know they're a retail shop, but they really haven't done well to impress their target market. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, J-Car. I'm sorry if anyone watching works at J-Car. It's just how I feel about it.
One from the Inkdroid. If you were going to make a 3D printer for kids to be able to use, how much do you think would be a reasonable price?
So the question's about kids and 3D printers. So I guess it's an open-ended question. There's one on Kickstarter now which I think is rubbish. I'm going to rip it apart in the video shortly. But in terms of making it easy for a kid to use and how much to charge, you have to price it like a toy. Like an easy bake oven. That's what it is for kids. It's an easy 3D printer. So it would have to be like $150. Like it'd have to be in line with the price of a large Lego kit for a parent to buy it. Which doesn't make much sense, but you could make a pretty cheap, crappy printer using plastic components. I reckon you could do it for about $100. It would be really bad. Make it extrude Play-Doh for all I care. But I think you could do it. But in terms of practicality, you're now making it a toy, which means it's not actually that useful. So, do I like the idea? Not necessarily, but I think it could be done. I think we got time for a couple more questions, and I need to get ready for bed.
Is PEI better than Captain?
Capton. Yeah.
Captain.
My minion's learning. You'll know all these terms soon enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so PEI is Ultem. It's a high temperature sheet. One of you awesome guys is sending a sheet over from, I think it's in the UK, from a company there. So Kapton tape has been a long-term favorite for 3D printing enthusiasts for bed surfaces. I always thought that it's too easy to damage it. So Kapton is very thin, unless you get like the Craftbot came with a thick Kapton, which was actually quite durable. But usually Kapton tape is super thin, and you get a print off the bed with like a scraper blade. You damage the Kapton, bam. You know, that whole 10 minutes of meticulously putting a sheet on without any bubbles has just been wasted. PEI sheet, you stick it onto the bed, and you're good to go. That in itself makes PEI better. But I haven't actually used PEI myself personally yet. I only know of things that people have taught me. So do wait until I review it myself to get my full opinion. But just the sheer ease of use, I would say PEI, hands down.
Anthony asks, would you drink out of a 3D printed cup?
Would I drink out of a 3D printed cup? Sure, I probably would. I mean, it's not food safe. Nothing that you print out of these machines is food safe. Even if the plastic says it is, once you feed it through the hot end and it melts, it's no longer food safe. But having said that, we drink water out of PET water bottles again and again and again. We eat food with plastic knives and forks off plastic plates. It's not going to kill you. To be honest, I don't think the plastic 3D printed cup would hold water because they usually would leak. But a little bit of history. One of the first things that you could print on your rep wrap, and it was recommended in the rep wrap walkthrough, was a shot glass, because you spent weeks making your rep wrap from scratch, calibrating it to print anything. The first thing you want to do is print yourself a shot glass. That's what you did. So yeah, you could do it. I don't think anyone's going to get killed from it, but it's not technically food safe.
What's your opinion about Z-axis threaded rods versus lead screws? They prefer the screws for stability.
Yeah. Okay. So the question's about. I mean, I wouldn't. Okay. The question's about threaded rods versus lead screws for a Z-axis. Personally, in this day and age, I would not even consider threaded rods for a Z-axis. Excuse me. It's too inconsistent. They're rolled, not machined. Therefore, the thread is very poor. You're going to get issues. You're going to be fine-tuning something that can't be fine-tuned, essentially. The only machine I know that uses a threaded rod that works well is the Fabricator Mini. And that's because it uses a tiny M4, I think, threaded rod. It's just an M4 bolt that's really long. That works well on a machine that size. But I would go with a lead screw on anything else. Or a ball screw if you can afford it. Going back to Bryce's question earlier. Alright. So, I think we're going to finish up when this last Polyflex print finishes. But it seems to be working pretty well. So time for a couple more questions. That's your sand timer. I don't know if you can see it with a terrible camera. I'll hopefully get this other camera working for next time. I have now, saying again, Spike sent me another camera, but I haven't worked out how to integrate it. It wasn't working. It was freezing the system. So hopefully next time I'll have a better quality camera looking at the printers.
Nathan would like to know, do you know any good metal filaments that work?
So the question...
In the works.
What was it, what?
Good metal filaments that are in the works.
So the question was about metal filaments. I'm assuming you mean the metal filled filaments for printing on these machines, because you can't print metal on these machines properly. In terms of metal filled, like bronze fill and brass fill, yes, eSun is bringing out their own range of metal filled PLAs, like I covered in my National Manufacturing Week video, which is on my channel. And they look great, and they're coming out soon. I think they're going to call them E-metal, from what I understand. And they are actually iron-filled PLA and copper-filled PLA. but that's the only one I know of. If you want to print real metal, like that's actually strong because the metal added to PLA makes it weaker. Yeah. Oh, Shotgun, I don't need another camera because I've already been given one. It's not working for some reason. But thank you for the offer. Spike has that covered, and massive thanks to Spike for sending me one.
Anthony says, would you like to borrow my 3D, my Delta printer?
Delta? Maybe. I've got so many machine and things to review. It's insane. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind borrowing a Cossel Mini if I can get hold of one, but it's just time. I'm so time poor. 3D printing takes time, and I don't have any time. Alright, she looks done. So, see if we get it off without breaking it. Alright. So the top infill's still pretty poor. I'll need to fine tune that, but the base didn't break off, which is good. A little bit of stringing. You do get stringing off these flexible filaments usually. But, yeah. Flexible. That's pretty cool. So you can print rubber grommets and shock absorbers and gaskets, I suppose. This is still a PLA temperature filament, so in terms of temperature resistance, I would say it doesn't really have any. But it's a neat material. So that's the Polyflex Black PLA. I think I don't even know if it's a PLA, but it's a Polyflex filament. Yeah, not too bad.
Any filaments suitable for high temperature applications?
Cool. Okay, so we're going to finish up on this question just because it's 10:30. We've gone half an hour over time. So, filament for high temperature applications, you can buy, again, PEI, Ultem. You can buy Ultem filament. But it extrudes at something like 350 degrees Celsius. So, keeping that in mind, printing it on a desktop machine is pretty much impossible. You need something that's completely enclosed and heated. You can get high temperature PLA from Protopasta, which I haven't tested yet, but it prints at normal PLA temperatures. Then you anneal it, and it suddenly resists something up to 200 degrees. So that might be an option that works for you as well. But if you need something that's actually going to resist like flames and really high temperatures, you need something like Ultem, which is not cheap. One last one.
Are you coming to the New York Makers Fair?
Yes. Okay, that's a great question. So, I am 100% planning to come to the New York Makers Fair. I was running through my costings today. It's not going to be cheap. I mean, I am in Australia. Flights alone for me and my partner are like 5,000 Australian dollars or something for the both return flights. It's expensive, but I am going to try to make it work, and I'm going to try to make it effective so you guys can get all the information and I can cover everything there for you, because often people cover the artsy side of things, but they don't really cover every 3D printing thing at Maker Faire, and that's why I want to do it. I want to document it for you guys so you can see it, and because it's America, I can probably get fast internet there, and I can probably stream, so I can probably stream from there. Question about streaming times. So because of YouTube being a global thing, I usually stream at 12 o'clock, which is great for the US guys, but very bad for you guys in the UK. So I alternate, and that's the plan from now on. So I'm going to do it at 12 o'clock next week, and then this week I'm going to do it, so 12 o'clock next week, and then the week after I'm going to do it at 9 o'clock. So 12 o'clock PM Australian Eastern Standard Time, and then 9 o'clock PM Australian Eastern Standard Time, and just alternate between the two. I tried to schedule a stream using YouTube's scheduling live event thing, and yet again I couldn't get into it. I don't know what's going on there. So during the week I might just do some random tests. Just don't expect anything special from those. I'm just going to see if I can get the stream thing sorted, because I always have issues, and I don't know if it's the internet or it's my computer or it's me, but yeah, I want to make sure that streams work first time, and you know when I'm going to be doing it. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this casual chat interesting. The Trinus is still doing its thing. But yeah, I'm printing these little cubes because I want to keep track of all the filament samples I have and make them accessible to you guys, so you know what filaments are out there and what prints well. I have a lot of samples. And once again, a huge thank you to all of you who are supporting the Patreon, because again, it would not have been possible without this. This is 4G internet. Sydney has very little fast internet. My upload speeds normally are 1 megabit per second. So this is the only way I can do streams. And I know it's not the highest quality stream, but it's the best I can do. And I can only do it because of the guys, because of you on Patreon. So thank you so much for your support. If you're not subscribed, I have to say, which you probably are, definitely consider subscribing to Maker's Muse so you don't miss any future 3D printing tips, tricks, reviews, and all that sort of thing. Cool. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.